All right, good morning. So we have some new forms and we also have some revised forms. I'm trying to go through all of them in as short of a time as possible. Gov Hutchinson, when he comes in on the 21st, he will be talking about all of this. And if you have any questions, you can ask him at that time. And if you have any ideas about changes in forms, also, it would be good to talk to Gov about it. Dynamic speaker, congratulations to our president for being able to bring him to our meeting on the 21st. So the first form is animal terms and condition addendum. This is one-page form. It replaces our current pet addendum. New form can be used for service or support animals, in addition to pets unrelated to disability status of the tenant. The next form, new form, is residential unit purchase addendum. This is a two-page form. This form addresses the residential aspects of a mixed-use property that is primarily commercial. It should be used with a CPA. It should be used with a CPA or a VLPA. If the primary purpose of the property is residential with an ancillary commercial use, then you can use the MUPA. So use this form with a CPA and a VLPA, but if you're going to use the MUPA, use it with RPA or RIPA. We talked about last time that the RPOD is going to be divided into two parts. That's rental property owner disclosure. That it's going to be divided into two parts. Well, now it is going to be. These new forms are going to be out on Tuesday, the third week of June. The RPOD, rental property owner disclosure, the new one is going to be 2 pages instead of now, which is currently 4-page, in the format of an SPQ. The form is used by a property owner to disclose to broker and the tenant conditions about the premises in 10 categories. Now, with RPOD, we're going to have an RPOQ. Okay, the RPOQ, rental property owner questionnaire, also it's in format of an SPQ, and the form is used by property owner to disclose to brokers, not the tenants, condition about premises in 20 different categories, such as water heater bracing, smoke alarm installation, gas and electric meters, parking, and storage. This is going to be a 3-page. This is going to be a 3-page form. Okay. This is the RPOQ. The next form would be the lease listing agreement. Okay. Page 1, paragraph 3E. This paragraph has been modified to give option to earn commission on subsequent renewal or sale of the property to the tenant. Okay, and paragraph 12B. Paragraph 12B was modified to require owner to provide to agent both an RPOD and RPOQ. So now it's going to be required for the landlord to provide us, or housing provider to provide us, those two forms. Now, as far as revised forms, buyer counteroffer, seller counteroffer, seller multiple counteroffer, they all have been modified, and they include a language, and you have the SMCO here. They include a language about the appraisal differences. On appraisals in the first page, let's say you're buying a property for $1 million, but you write the property has to be appraised minimum $950. 950. Okay, this explains that 950. If later on you counter and the price goes to 1,200,000, your minimum appraisal is not 950. Your minimum appraisal is 1,150,000. So it's not the 950 that counts; it's the gap. It's the difference that is important. That counts. Okay, and it's all the explanation is over here. And as I said, if it's 1 million and if it's 1,200,000, the difference is it should be 1,150,000. So the minimum appraisal value adjusts based on your counteroffers. The next form, cancellation of contract, added language explaining how to fill out the form. Notice to buyer to perform. There was language was added to make clear that if the notice is given too early for some identified contingencies or contract actions, because sometimes people send a notice to perform and they're asking for everything to be removed, but you still have time for a couple of other contingencies to be removed. This form is valid, but it is not valid only for those contingencies or contract actions that the time hasn't arrived yet. Okay. The next form, PAPA, probate purchase agreement. Okay. Optional sentence added to court confirmation paragraphs, giving buyer a cancellation right if no confirmation date within the 60 days of acceptance. On residential listing agreement, residential listing agreement open, residential listing agreement seller reserve, vacant land listing agreement. Some paragraphs were changed. Paragraph on page 3 of residential listing agreement, paragraph was added to address presentation of offers, defaulting to seller to be presented as they are submitted. All offers to be presented to the seller as they are submitted, giving the seller the option, if the box is checked, okay, for holding the offers to a specific date. So read this paragraph, talk to your broker. I think this is going to be these are all good stuff to talk to Gov about when he's coming out, because he is the guy that is in charge of all these forms and everything else. He is awesome, and he's really a wealth of knowledge. The next form, SBSA, statewide buyer and seller, paragraph A15 was added to explain preliminary reports and the importance of reading documents. And now it is a 15-page instead of being 14-page document. The next form, SPBB, instructions were added to make clear that the form is only needed if one, buyer representation agreement has already been signed. 2, the compensation offered through the MLS will not cover the entire payment that the buyer would be responsible for paying the buyer's broker. And 3, buyer is asking the seller to pay. How is the buyer going to ask the seller to pay? By filling up or by checking the box in paragraph 3G3 of the purchase agreement. The next form that was modified is the SPRP. Okay. And language was added to paragraph 1B to indicate that if the seller has already entered into a contract to acquire a property, then contingency for finding a replacement property is eliminated. This is just a cleanup. TOPA, tenant occupied property addendum, paragraph 1B3, language was added to create an obligation of the seller to identify the names of all adult occupants on the property, whether or not paying rent. Okay. The next form, vacant land purchase agreement. On the first page, paragraph 3E3. Okay. It was modified to say that it's for investment purposes only, unless you want to change it to whatever that you want. And on page 3, paragraph 3Q2 added a language in the parentheses to clarify that the environmental survey indicated is phase 1 only. Okay. On lease rental commission agreement, if you're going to just do a commission agreement on lease or rental agreements, paragraph 3 was added to allow option to earn commission on subsequent renewals or sales to the tenant. Okay, so with that, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to take it now, but I really invite you to come out on the 21st. I think you should invite everybody in your offices as well to be there. It is going to be an amazing event, and let everybody know that the forms are changing. Look, if stuff are changing in the counter offer, that just shows, you know, how deep this thing is going. So it would be great for everybody to notify 8 people in their offices to show up on the 21st. I think it's going to be a very informative meeting for everyone. Any questions, please? Thank you, Madam President, for the opportunity to serve your committee, and that concludes my report. Oh, Sevak has a question.
Yes, good morning, Greg. Thanks for the report. As always, very informative. Wanted to ask you a question about the very first 2 forms that you talked about, which was the update that was done to the RPOD, breaking it down to 2 parts, RPOD and RPOQ now. You mentioned that the RPOD, the new version, is to be used as a disclosure by the property owner to the brokers as well as to the tenant. So, and the RPOQ is a set of questionnaire that is required for the property owner to provide the broker. Would it be correct to summarize it that the RPOQ is a form that is used at the time of lease listing agreement, when the RPOD is a form that you will use at the time of signing a lease agreement between the tenant and the landlord?
You can, yeah, you can use it, you know, just like the SPQ. If seller property questionnaire, some people do it at the beginning, some people do it when they go into a contract. But I think an agent should get the RPOQ first to know what they are dealing with. Okay,
right?
And
like at the time of lease listing,
right? And then RPOD could come later. The question will come to, you know, when this was discussed in the committee at C.A.R., the question will come, look, there are information in RPOQ, okay, that you may want the buyer, the tenant to know. So how are you going to handle it? So with that, maybe, you know, everybody should talk to their broker. What we do right now with the RPOD, the current RPOD, the 4-page RPOD, is we put initials, we get buyer's initials at the bottom of the page. We disclose everything to the, I mean,
right,
to the tenant, not the buyer, to the tenant. So talk to your broker, but this would be a really good question. Okay, all the questions that we have in RPOQ, okay, how are we going to disclose it to the tenant? Now, the agent has extra duty of going through this and disclosing it to the tenant. So it would be a really good question to ask. Gov, questions came up or issues came up about bringing the form back together again, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Okay,
it is what
thanks.
it is. Yeah.
Appreciate
All right. Okay. Any other questions, please?
Actually, Rick, I have a question.
Yes.
Is it all right to have the tenants initial this RPOQ form at the bottom? Even though it's something intended for the agent and the broker, it still gives you knowledge about the condition of the property, and you have to share what you know about it. with the tenants. So anything wrong with them reviewing it and initialing it so that they also have knowledge of what the condition of the property is?
I think you're absolutely right. That is the issue, because let's say we're talking about carbon monoxide, smoke alarms, pool safety, bed bugs, and stuff like that. Okay, and I think the tenant has the right to know, and you as a broker, you know about this. So if you're not going to provide them the RPOQ, the new RPOQ, then you should talk about items that you know about, but it's not covered in RPOD.
Okay.
So either you have to disclose it or just provide the form to the tenant.
Okay.
Good morning, Michael.
Howdy. So number one, thank you again for the presentation. Number two, for all of you sitting out there, I don't know how he puts up with that forms committee for so many years. I served on it 25 years ago or whatever it is like that, and 2 years was enough for me. I just couldn't handle it. MLS was much easier. And the third thing is, I was just on the C.A.R. site trying to see that are these forms, I realize they're not being released, but they're in the format that you have right now as a draft. Are they available on C.A.R. right now that we can look at and start going through as brokers and so on?
Yes, if you go to CAR.org, go to meetings, go to spring 2023 meeting materials, and go to standard form advisory committee, SFAC advisory committee. Any document that is in the standard form, you're not going to be able to get it because it's a closed meeting, but the standard form advisory, standard form forum on forms, you look in there, you'll see all the forms that are in there. Click on one of them, you'll see all the forms. This is the latest and this is the most updated forms. So they will be released in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Red line versions?
These are the red line versions. Yeah, these are the red line final versions. Yeah, some of them are blue because we had enough red, changed up to blue. But some of them are blue versions, some of them are red version. But yes, you can find them over there.
And there was a 2-hour fight over whether they could use blue over red. As I remember that committee.
It still goes on. It still goes on. It's the same fight. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions, please? My pleasure. Any other questions, please? All right. Thank you, Madam President, again for allowing me to serve our membership. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your unwavering support of the association and our members. Thank you always for sharing all this wonderful information with us. Okay, Robert, can you take this presentation? Yes, thank you. Okay. I will now ask our Government Affairs Director, Greg Astorian, to provide us with an update. Greg, it's yours now.
Sure, and good morning to you all, and thank you for participating in today's Caravan and Town Hall meeting. First, a real quick update on Senate Bill 466, WAHA, that had to do with adding rent control provisions for single-family homes and condominiums, which since has been taken out, but nonetheless C.A.R. still opposes it because it is an extreme form of rent control. That was taken up at the Senate yesterday, the session that started at 2 o'clock, and it was rejected the first time around, and the author asked for reconsideration. and that was granted, and so it will be looked at again today. The same with Senate Bill 567, Durazo, that I believe time did not allow for it to be taken yesterday, but it will be visited today. So I will update you hopefully next time when we get together. But the purpose of today's meeting, my presentation, albeit a short one, is going to be about storytelling. We as realtors, you as realtors, are perhaps the best storytellers that there are in town, be it a story about your community, be it a story about the market, and what have you. What makes your stories even more compelling, more effective, and more hard to forget is the data that you provide your clients, your customers, that augments and or supplements those stories. That story could be the listing presentation that you're providing. The story could be the comps section of your listing presentation and so forth. And today, I am going to be sharing with you some infographics, and I've done this before, but I thought it's valuable to revisit it. Infographics and shareables by C.A.R. that you can use on your Facebook, in your Twitter account, and or in 1-minute videos that hopefully you are doing and sending at least once a month to your clientele. So without further ado, I'm going to be sharing my my screen with you. I am on CAR.org Market Data Interactive. And Robert will post that link for you in the chat momentarily. There is about 14 different reports that are shareable, whether it's a buyer report, whether it's a seller report, and these are two of my favorites, and you've seen me share with you that last year. And it goes down to inventory report and even interactive map or local market report, housing supplies. All of these are infographics, data that you can depend on adding to your story, to your listing, to your pre-listing presentations, and so forth. The latest one that I want to share with you is the tax portability calculator. And I'm going to click on that and go to the site and show to you what it can do for you. Let's just say that you want to show a client of yours on how much they will be saving on property taxes once, according to Prop 19, they've sold their property. And we've been told that lots of times that's one of the reasons why folks do not want to sell, because they're afraid of larger tax base on the follow-up or the leg up as far as exchange is concerned. Let's take a case. Say a house was purchased in 1990, and it was purchased for, and I'm talking about Glendale right now, right? Say $450,000, right? And so let's just say that your client wants to purchase something at around $1.8 million, right? It automatically, the calculator calculates what the savings is going to be on property taxes. So according to Prop 19, the assessment, and by the way, these are approximate, right? Is about $9,800. Market value for $1.8 million for a tax is $22,500. Your client would be able to save somewhere close to about $11,000 in their property taxes if they were to actually use the portability of Prop 19 provision, portability provision of Prop 19, and purchase the house at $1.8 million. Now, let's just say that your client doesn't want to purchase a house for $1.8 million. Instead, wants to downsize, even though their property is worth $1.8 million. Again, we're not talking about capital gains, right? We're talking about tax portability. Let's just say that your client would purchase something around $750,000. The portability would be about negative $1,900. So it wouldn't make much difference in the case of this client, right? And so this is what I wanted to share with you. What I'd like to do now is to go back to the menu on the 14 or so reports that are available. And I was thinking about it. You've seen our association do the 1-minute videos on Mondays. And imagine if you were to do a minute video and you were to use any one of these stuff once a month or once every 3 weeks, depending on your marketing, sending it to your seller or selling it to your buyer, right? Let's look at the seller report. And I will go and do so for the city of Glendale. You can select the county by Los Angeles, for example, right? And you can get a PDF of the report or a PNG that you can actually post on your Facebook or your Twitter account or what have you. Let's go to city of Glendale. Right? Let me expand this. And let's look at the PDF report. It gives you a snapshot. And by the way, these are not static. They will get once a month, they get updated. So anytime that you go to it, you will get the updated version, but usually it's the end of the last month. So we are in May, and this is April report. In about a week or so, the May reports will be out. It will give you a seller's guide, how long the homes have been on the MLS, by percentage point, how many buyers pay over the list price, 46% right now in the city of Glendale. Median list price at $835. The lowest price, and perhaps this is a condominium, albeit I've seen a house that was listed at around $500 and some odd dollars. And the average price and the highest price per square foot, and how many days it takes to sell the property and so forth. This is the kind of information that it either can be used as a pre-listing package with the video to be sent to your seller, and or as part of your listing, right? These are data, and if you are providing data, you're making your story that much stronger and that much more dependable. With that, Madam President, that concludes my my report, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Greg. Appreciate that. Okay.